Okay, the reading for this week is the next part in our series on Chinese civilization and philosophy and culture, and it is Excerpts from Comprehensive Mirror in Aid of Governance by Sima Guang. And as usual, the excerpt from the essay is taken from sources of Chinese tradition, compiled by William Theodore de Berry and Irene Bloom, Volume 1. I'll put the link to that book in the description below so you can purchase it and follow along there, as well as the link to this PDF workshop or a worksheet that was compiled by somebody at Columbia University. Okay. The writing of history became an important literary form in the Han Dynasty. Very important sentence, I'll say it again. The writing of history became an important literary form in the Han Dynasty. Continued on a regular basis from then on, the art of history saw particularly significant development in the Tang periods and the Northern Song periods, which follow the Tang. Review the dates for the Tang and the Song periods, if you haven't memorized them already. So the art of history saw significant developments in those two periods with the work of historians such as Liu Zizhi, Du You, and Ouyang Xiu. Okay, Ouyang Xiu is particularly important in Japan. Morioka and Ishikawa-jun and other writers often talk about his Kanbun during the Meiji period and Taisho period and so forth. But these are the three historians that further developed the art of writing history in the Tang and Northern Song periods. Liu Zhi, this is very difficult to say. Liu Zhi. Late in the day, it's hard to pronounce Chinese names properly, so I'll just skip over it. However, the outstanding achievement of this period is that of Sima Guang. Okay, Sima Guang is the author of the essay here. Born in 1019, died 1086. Sima, who served as a high-ranking official in the imperial government, was also an historian. His greatest work is a chronological account of all Chinese history prior to the Song in 294 chapters, entitled Comprehensive Mirror in Aid of Governance. Okay, this is his most famous work, and we'll be reading excerpts from it here. It's about to rain, and there's supposed to be lightning, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. Excerpts from his Comprehensive Mirror in Aid of Governance. There's a short section and a longer one. I'll read the longer one, but I'll read the study questions first. Question 1. What function does the author see for history? Question 2. How does the author's understanding of history, that is the art of writing history, as conveyed in this paragraph, this key paragraph that we're about to get to, compare to your own understanding of history? And question 3. What can you conclude about the power of emperors from this short description of a conversation between a Tang emperor and two of his officials? Okay, I'm about to read that passage here. Okay. So excerpts from Comprehensive Mirror in Aid of Governments by Sima Guang. And there's an introductory note here from the latter Han Dynasty. It had become the practice to have official historiographers at court taking notes on the emperor's words and actions as he attended to state business. These matters were then written up and preserved in the archives as the Diaries of Action and Repose, the Qi Jiu, to provide source material for later historians. Meanwhile, they impressed on the emperor that everything he said or did would be recorded for posterity. During the Tang, it was still the practice to keep the records out of the reach of the imperial glance in order to assure objectivity. This was no longer the case in the Song dynasty, but memorialists continued to appeal to emperors to act in a manner that would ensure their posthumous reputation. Okay, here is the essay now. The year 642, summer, 4th month. The Emperor Taizong spoke to the imperial censor Chu Sui Liang, saying, "Since you, sir, are in charge of the diaries of action and repose, may I see what you have written?" Sui Liang replied, "The historiographers record the words and deeds of the ruler of men, noting all that is good and bad in hopes that the ruler will not dare to do evil, but it is unheard of that the ruler himself should see what is written." The emperor said, "If I do something that is not good, did you then record it also?" Sui Liang replied, "My office is to wield the brush. How could I not dare to record it?" The gentleman of the yellow gate Liu Zhi added, "Even if Sui Liang failed to record it, everything else in the empire would." To which the emperor replied, "True." Okay, the next section has a prefatory note. Sima Guang's history was centered on emperors, and emperors needed to hear the truth about themselves face to face, as well as having it recorded for posterity. The emperor in the following anecdote is Taizong, the de facto ruler and second emperor of the Tang. Sima Guang's comment is clearly addressed to his own emperor. And the text, the emperor, troubled that many officials were taking bribes, secretly ordered his attendants to test some of them with bribes. When a registrar in the Board of Punishments took a roll of silk and the emperor wanted to have him executed, Minister of the Treasury Zhou remonstrated. "An official taking a bribe should be punished by death, but your majesty entrapped this man by sending someone to give it to him. This, I fear, is not leading the people by virtue and restraining them by the rules of decorum," or li. Delighted, the emperor summoned all officials above the 5th rank and told them Beizhu was able to contest this case forcefully at court and did not pretend acquiescence. If every matter is handled this way, what cause will there be to worry about misgovernment? Your official Guang comments, the ancients had a saying that if the ruler is enlightened, the ministers will be honest. That Beizhu was given to flattery under the Sui dynasty, but to loyalty under the Tang, was not because his personality changed. A ruler who resents hearing of his faults turns loyalty into flattery, but one who is pleased by straight talk turns flattery into loyalty. So that's the sort of didactic message of this episode that he's recounting. Thus we know that the ruler should be able to take advice, take criticism, so that he won't create an environment where people only flatter him. Thus we know that the ruler is the nomon, or post for measuring the height of the sun. The minister, the shadow. The ruler is the nomon, Gnomon, and the minister is the shadow. When the nomon moves, the shadow follows. Again, the next section has another prefatory note. Sima Guang has been much criticized for his defense of the hegemons, the hegemons. His defense of the hegemons, Sima Guang. For his defense of the hegemons, Sima Guang has been much criticized. And the hegemons are leaders who, during the Eastern Zhou, were able to prevail for a time, but none of whom succeeded in unifying China. So ultimately it was the Qing state that unified China. The Ba, or the other hegemons that were unable to do so. Mencius, Mengzi, we've already read some Mengzi, had charged that these rulers, these Ba, hegemons, in contrast to genuine worthies, only pretend to de, or virtue. But Sima Guang here, holds that they met the needs of their time. This, however, does not make him a historical relativist, for he stresses that there is only one Dao, one way. Sima dates the following exchange, which he recapitulates as a basis for his own comment on the subject of the king and the hegemon, to 53 BCE, during the former Han dynasty. So the first half of the Han dynasty is when he dates this too. The speakers are the heir apparent and future Emperor Yuan, and his father, the reigning Emperor Shang. The heir apparent appeals to his father to employ more Confucian scholars and fewer legalists. We've talked about the legalists, or the statescraft school, the Fajia, such as Han Fei, in his government. So the heir apparent appeals to his father to employ more Confucians, and fewer legalists. And here's the text. The heir apparent was soft and humane, Ren. He liked scholars, but observed that many legal officials employed by the emperor used punishments in order to control subordinates. Remember, the legalists, the Fajia school, are the ones that use very severe punishments and rewards in order to get the people to do what they want. Once at a banquet, he let himself go. The heir apparent let himself go and said, "Your Majesty relies too heavily on punishments. It would be appropriate to employ scholars, or maybe Ru." The emperor changed expression, probably Lu, actually, in that context. The emperor changed expression. The House of Han has its own system based on mixing the way of the hegemon, the Ba, and of the king. How could we possibly rely solely on moral instruction and employ Zhou governance? Moreover, ordinary scholars do not understand the needs of the day, but like to affirm antiquity and deny the present. So we're talking about Ru scholars, Confucian scholars who affirm antiquity and deny the present, starting with Confucius, who affirmed antiquity and denied the present, causing men to confuse name and reality so that they don't know what to hold on to. How can they be entrusted with the state? Your official Guang comments, there are not different ways for king and hegemon. Of old, when the three dynasties flourished and rites, music, and punitive expeditions proceeded from the Tianzi, the son of heaven, the ruler was called king. When the son of heaven, the Tianzi, became weak and was able to control the lords, there appeared among them those who could lead allied states to punish false states, thereby honoring the royal house. These were called hegemons, the Ba. Their conduct in both cases was based on humaneness, Ren, and founded on rightness, Yi. They entrusted the worthy and employed the capable, rewarded the good and punished the evil. Kanzen chowaku in Japanese we say. Rewarded the good, punished the evil, prohibited cruelty, and executed the rebellious. Therefore, they differ in the honor or pettiness of their status, in the depth or shallowness of their virtue, their da, and their greatness or insignificance of their achievements, in the breadth of or narrowness of their government orders, but they do not contradict each other like white and black or sweet and bitter. The reason why the Han could not return to the government of the three dynasties was because so here's a didactic message that the historiographer gives here, Sima Guang gives here. The reason why the Han could not return to the government of the three dynasties was because the rulers did not do it, and not because the way of the former kings could not again be carried out in later ages. Among scholars, there are superior and petty men. There are Junzi and there are Xiaozi, Xiaoren. Junzi and Xiaoren. Daren and Junzi, the superior men, and Xiaoren, petty men. Ordinary scholars, ordinary scholars are Ru. Remember, Ru is the reading of the graph for Confucius, Jukyo in Japanese. Ordinary Confucian scholars truly are not qualified to participate in government. But why could they not have sought for genuine scholars and employed them? Ji, Xie, Gao Yao, Bo Yi, Yi Ying, and the Duke of Zhou, and Confucius were all great Ru scholars. Had the Han employed men such as these, the glory of its accomplishments would not have been as limited as it was. Okay, that's the end of this reading. We'll discuss more in class, focusing on the questions that were in the study guide, study questions. All right, that's all for now. Goodbye.